courthouse the other day in the hallway. You're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And
Well,
welcome to Justice Serve TV. Oh, I stepped right on you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Well, where are you? I can tell you where Justice is. Justice is Michael O'Brien, and he is in Orlando for the Sarah Boone trial. But before we talk to him, I just want to tell you we're going to do this is a special live episode of Justice Serve TV. We're going to do 3 cases. YSL, because you know what's been happening with that. There was a lot of to-dos in the courtroom yesterday, a lot of kerfuffles, as they would say. Is there going to be a mistrial or not? And of course, Michael Bryant, boots on the ground all week in Sarah Boone. And then maybe by the time we get to the end of the show, the DA will be at his press conference, which was announced for 1:30 in California time, and it has not started yet.
Right, that's the Gascon announcement.
Yeah, announcement. So, Michael, while you just catch your breath, because I see you're at an airport rushing to get there, let's talk a little bit about YSL. I tweeted earlier, we wanted to get Doug on, as you know, Doug Weinstein, but he's in the middle of things, even though he is away from the trial this week. Trust me, he knows exactly what's going on and is calling the shots with his client. And he tweeted, he has a couple of TikToks. I'm really interested in, and I retweeted his TikTok, and then I said something about Doug Weinstein. He's got this. He's good. He knows what's going on, and there's a lot of things that are happening. And he actually liked my tweet. My ex, I don't know what you call it. My ex.
I call them excrements. and
then also retweeted us. So one of the things he said, I want you all to remember that while you're all invested in this trial, our clients are human beings. They're not entertainment. That's a clue. And he said there is a lot going on. And he also, the third thing he said that's important, that gives you a clue as to, and I said everything is contained in this video, so what's going on, is that it's the client's decision as to what they do, not the lawyer's decision here. All right, so that tells me 3 things. All right, It tells me that pleas are being considered, that because they've been in jail, even if they may be not guilty, they're considering them, whether it's for the advice, against the advice of counsel or with the advice of counsel, since they're not entertainment, they're not going to do something to say, we're going to have this show on. We're going to keep doing YSL for all of our lives. And the third thing that you have to remember is that it is always one of the decisions of whether or not you take a deal or not. If there is a deal being offered, it's always the client's decision. It's like whether or not you have a jury, it's like whether or not you testify, and it's like whether or not you say you're guilty. So, Michael, talk to me about this. If they don't take the mistrial that's been offered, it's waived. Well, everything is waived here that happened in the courtroom, and that's the 2 things that basically happened. Whereas the witness on the stand talked about 2 people being incarcerated in prison, in jail, in a not so roundabout way. Why would that be? Why can't that? Why do you have to take a mistrial without prejudice, which means that they can bring it back?
No, that's why I do not think it's going to happen. Here's what I think the best scenario is. They do come up with some sort of plea deal that equates to time served.
You have to speak up, Michael. Our viewers are saying they can't hear you over the racket, so shout.
Let's see if I can. Let me see if I can. How about that? So I think that you're going to have a situation where a plea deal will be arranged, but it will involve something lower level where time served is the penalty. So that way, you don't have to worry about a retrial. You don't have to worry about going through this whole mess again. And really, that's some level of justice for the guys who've been sitting in Rice Street for years now, even though they have to choke down some lower level offense. I think that's the best result. Will that happen? I don't know.
Yeah, no. Okay. So that's going to something happen, except for Young Thug. I don't think he's going to. I don't think Brian Steele is going to allow Young Thug to take a plea deal because he doesn't have any priors. Because he has no record. He has no record. You can't hear me, or you just can't hear Michael, KH. Okay, let me know. Okay, because over his. There's nothing we can quite do about it because he's at an airport. He ran to an airport, and believe it or not, he's in the quietest part of the Orlando airport. So that's why I wanted to get on the air with you because so much happened. But this is a clue. It sounds to me like there's maybe a disparity between the different defendants as to who will take a deal, who won't take a deal. There may be some who won't take a mistrial unless it's with prejudice or without prejudice. And believe it or not, there is an election coming up. Guess what? Fani Willis knows there's an election coming up. This has been a hot button topic, even in the community that supports her the most. Rating among Democrats, among Black community, even though Michael Bryant saw when he was there with the man on the street that people weren't supporting her decision on Young Thug. So she may be doing things because it's right, even though it would be right to just quit this whole case right now. Michael, your thoughts?
I think, and I fixed my audio, I think, confirm if somebody notices it's better now. I think she is going to go kicking and screaming into any resolution that looks like it puts a dent in her authority. I just think that that's who she is. We've seen it play out in court. She's not surprising anybody with this kind of attitude that she has. And of course, with Mr. Bond, the people who work for her have the same attitude. So that, I bet you, is the sticking point right now, that whatever reasonable options, deals might be talked about, she's digging her heels in, because we've seen that happen over the last 2 years in this case, and we're not even talking about the documents case or the Trump case. We've seen her at her worst, and I don't know if it gets better.
Okay, so Michael, someone suggested you mute while I talk. I mean, on your computer. Now, here comes drama, says, and I'm going to try to show it. Fannie abuses all resources. Yes, we've seen that because we've had Ashley Merchant on, as you know. I'm shouting, by the way. I hope you all don't mind that right now. I'm trying to get over that noise. Ashley Merchant on it. But remember what Doug said. It's not entertainment. So some people are, in my opinion, are going to take a deal. Some people are going to take the mistrial. Maybe it's a mistrial without prejudice, and just figure that maybe they can negotiate a deal later on. And maybe the theory is that YSL gets to walk free. And then, remember, the defendants can talk among themselves, the clients, either whether it's through the lawyers or not. Michael.
There, I was muted there when you were talking, so hopefully that was a little bit better. Yeah, I'm just going to say what I said before. There will be no deal, in my opinion, unless there is some sort of arrangement on a lower level crime that lets these guys out on time served. I think that's it. That's going to be the linchpin. Otherwise, what's your motivation? You're going to take a deal that leaves you in prison for a few more years? I don't think so. Not the way the trial's going. What's the benefit?
Yeah, Michael, I would just say that I still think the prosecutors should be investigated. I think the prosecutors, in my opinion, should be brought up on charges after all this. I think it's an abusive process to put anyone through a 2-year trial, a 10-month jury selection. I think it's outrageous. I mean, we're not talking, they're treating this case as it's the mafia. That's why they indicted them under RICO, which is usually used for a mafia situation. It's being overused in the criminal law. Civil law, I agree. RICO is a great resource. But I think it's just outrageous. Anyhow, do any of you have any specific questions you want us to answer about YSL? Because if not, we're going to move to the next one.
Let me just say this while you're looking. There is this election coming up. This election factors into some of these cases we're talking about, including YSL. And we know that the person running against Fani Willis has said, I'll just wipe this trial out if I'm elected. But she is trailing so badly because apparently people like Fani Willis. That's it. They may not agree with some of her decisions, but they certainly aren't off her so much because of this trial that they're going to vote against her. I mean, that's the easiest answer. That's coming up in 2 weeks. Vote her out of office, the case ends.
And it won't. So I think also the defense attorneys know that too, that this is the time that this is the time to strike if they get their clients out of jail for Thanksgiving. But I don't think Thug, I agree. I don't think Thug is going to take a deal. I don't think Brian Steele is going to let him. All right. Okay. So let's go on to the next thing, Michael. You are boots on the ground. The reason why it's so noisy is because you're at the airport. You have been in the front row seat at the Sarah Boone trial all week. We have some more coming up this week. We have some man on the street interviews, which will probably be up on Monday.
I don't know.
We have
who knows?
interviews on our channel with Susan Constantine, a jury consultant, and you also had the interview with the witness who the judge didn't allow anyone to hear. But what was happening in the courtroom today, and what is going to happen tomorrow in Sarabone?
You know, this thing has hit the skids. And normally I would agree with you. Normally I am boots on the ground, but right now I'm butt on the ground. I'm sitting on the ground at the airport so that I'm not, looking down or up or weird. So I haven't sat like this on the floor since maybe kindergarten. Anyway, so what happened today, for the most part, was the battle over the one expert that the prosecution has brought in to rebut the defense expert. And it all boiled down to what that expert told the defense in a deposition, which just happened on the 4th, right? The 4th of this month.
Because of Florida, you get to depose expert witnesses in criminal cases. It's one of the 3 states in the country.
And it's not unusual that it would be done so close to trial because it's expensive. And until you know you're going, you don't want to invest that money to investigate this expert. They did that. The defense was up in arms because they said she's changing her opinion. We learned certain things in this deposition, which is designed to get her opinions. Now here we are 2 weeks later, and she's got new opinions. They're sandbagging us, Judge. And the judge wasn't having much of it. I'll tell you that. He truly sided with the state. They had a secondary deposition in the middle of trial. They excused the jury, and she was deposed while she was on the stand about this one specific issue. That issue, key to the case, of course, the abused spouse syndrome or abused person syndrome. She had said in earlier testimony via deposition, she didn't think that Sarah Boone suffered from that. And then during trial, she changed her opinion. Now, you might be thinking for the defense, I don't care if she changes her opinion. If she says, now I think she is suffering from abused spouse syndrome, that helps our defense. That's how I saw it playing out. But it became more of I'll call it a Brady violation. I think they call it a Richardson violation there in Florida. Excuse me, I think.
But it's Brady. It's Brady. For all of you who don't care, it's Brady. The authorities were coming out to the courthouse too.
I think it's basically an idea that hey, the state is ambushing us. We're being ambushed, and so the defense wanted a mistrial. And I have never, I X'd this out earlier. I have never heard a mistrial denied so quickly as I did in that hearing today. This again, of course, not in front of the jury, but it was barely out of James Owen's mouth when the Judge Kranek was denied. I mean, he was having none of it. And they went forward, finished the deposition, then brought the jury back in, finished this witness's testimony. I really think not only did she come off as wishy-washy, but I think it's probably helpful to the defense that they kept pounding away on this abused spouse syndrome. Nobody on that jury could walk away thinking, I wonder if she had abused spouse syndrome. She does. She did. That's not the big issue here. The issue here is, was she threatened at some point that night, right? February 23rd, 2020, to the degree that she was justified in allowing him to die. And that's the ball game. So,
and I think Michael, that statement she made on the tape, for all the things you did to me, it shows that it's revenge, not now, not that you're threatened now.
And she's talked intentionally a lot about not doing anything intentional. Well, I don't know how you self-defend accidentally, but if you believe that his hand at some point was out of that suitcase not unlike this one here, if it was out of that, and she also heard him say, I'm going to end you, that might rise to the level of an overt act that would justify her reaction. But you have to believe that. And what a surprise, coincidence, good fortune, not for her, that's not captured on either of the 2 recordings that she made that night. So from the people I talked to, and again, we will throw this out there the next day or so, a lot of people didn't know about it, which didn't surprise me. But those that did felt that even if she was suffering as she was, and they gave credit to that problem, that domestic violence is a real thing, not good enough under the circumstances where the guy was zipped in the suitcase. How could he possibly harm her? That was kind of the general consensus anyway. And I would not be surprised if that's what happens on the jury, except, we got 5 women and 1 guy. That's the 6. The rest are all alternates. Who knows? If you got more than one woman who responds to the domestic violence argument and hangs everybody up, a hung jury would not shock me.
Yeah, but our viewers are the right. Even George was a victim of domestic violence too. I mean,
Yes.
he classic domestic violence. We know that men can be the victim. You know, before
Yep.
we continue with Sarah, I just want to mention one thing. One of our viewers had a question about YSL, about the issue of speedy trial. The statute in Georgia says that if a mistrial is declared, you have to start a trial then at the next, whatever it is they call it there, of trials. You know, they have different times that they start all their trials. So just because he asked for a speedy trial, there's a mistrial, doesn't mean that there's going to be a denial. So I forgot to do that. I just want to do that for you. So
Yeah, and it's not unlike
Right.
Karen Reed, where that mistrial had to be retried within a certain period of time. That one, of course, coming up in January. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just awful. So if I look at see what our chatters are doing, and keep chatting among yourself, we're trying to get to all of your questions and all of your comments here. That's exactly right. The fact that the defense kept saying battered woman syndrome, like George didn't fit the criteria better than Sarah did.
You know,
I just think it comes down to likability. No one
well,
likes her.
you know what I say: never underestimate the power of likability. And I can apply that to experts too. I don't think the state's expert was as likable. She came across kind of waffly, and ultimately, I think, bent in a way, as I said, to help the defense. But they heard today past events, body cam footage where cops have been called out to their home, and Sarah would be whining and complaining about what happened. And I don't know if it helps her or not. It justifies, yep, she certainly had some issues in the past, but George is on there too. And he's talking about how sometimes it's mutual. So all of that is very interesting. It paints kind of a sad picture of their relationship. But is it enough to overcome that question about what happened that night when she had the opportunity to let this guy out of the suitcase? And if you don't believe she felt in fear for her life or serious bodily injury to justify leaving him in there, then it's over.
It's over. All right. So what happens tomorrow? You were in the courtroom all day today. You heard all the experts. What happens tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow they'll have they're fighting over some jury instructions, and you'll know which one of them because they've been fighting about it since the beginning. The motion in limine that had to do with the Miranda warnings. Remember, there was a slight flaw in the Miranda warnings. That very last line that kind of reiterates, "Do you understand these rights and want to talk to us anyway?" The courts have decided you don't need that. It'd be great if you have it. You don't necessarily need it. That's why they lost at the in limine stage. They lost when they argued about it during the trial. Now it's a jury instruction that they'll be arguing about. It's a modification of the normal Miranda warning jury instruction. And so that's going to take some time. I think they'll get to closings. I think they'll get to them. But the real question then becomes, man, it's Friday. These folks get it. They've seen the case. Unless, in my opinion, unless there's a hung jury, they will come to a verdict tomorrow night. And I think there'll be, I don't know what level of guilt it will be. Maybe they'll find incomplete self-defense and hit her with the manslaughter, which of course is ironic because that's what she was offered before trial.
Yeah, and she was offered a great deal before trial.
15 years, which you probably serve 8 or 9. She's already been in for 4. She's 47. She gets out at 51. You got your whole life ahead of you, such as it might be. But she's an interesting duck. There's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. So speaking about interesting ducks, we also want to talk about the Menendez case because the press conference has been announced that Gascon has recommended resentencing in the Menendez brothers case for the 1989 killing of their parents. And the reason why I bring that up is because Terry Martinez brings that back to Fani Willis to say, hey, it's all an election. And if Fani wants to win now, that's why she may be granting these deals now or all. Also, George Gascon is like a 4-1 underdog in the polls against his opponent. And there's a lot of Gen Z people, a lot of people who weren't around at the time of trial who watched the Netflix documentary and think that that the Menendez brothers were the victims of their parents' sexual abuse or their parents' inaction in the case of Kitty, not doing anything about it, causing one brother also to molest the other brother, and that they think that they should be resentenced. Now, I'm not sure I disagree with resentencing because I think that people in jail can come out, that all these life sentences are just a little bit ridiculous. All right. But I'm not sure I agree with it on this. But we were right. It didn't happen today. It's going to happen in the future. And then the question becomes, and I'm throwing this to you and our viewers, what happens to the relatives of Kitty and the father, and even in this, and the father, who are dead set against this going forward. That's against this resentencing.
Yeah, I think you got to take a look back at the sequence of events that took place, long after conviction. It's been 35 years now. But if you go back just 18 months, that's when this new evidence, which includes the letter from the Menudo singer who was being managed by the father, right? Joe was managing, he's a music guy at that time with RCA. And that information went to Gascon's office 18 months ago. So what the hell's been happening for 18 months?
What's he been doing? Let
They
him
have
out.
they have a resentencing division in LA County. Okay, so I wonder what's going on. Could it be an election in 2 weeks so that he announces 2 weeks ago his intention to have this hearing? The hearing was going to be on November 26th. Interesting enough on the timing. That'd be about 4 days before he loses office. Every governmental entity has a different time frame for election on this day. Somebody else takes over on this day. Obviously, with the president, November election, January they take over. Well, LA County, the election is November 12/1. The new person comes in, and that's likely to be Mr. Hochman. So I think Gascon just said, this is kind of the polls, as you suggest, he's down like 20 points or more. I mean, it doesn't even look close. But this seems to me to be like a Hail Mary political stunt that the public, I think on balance, the majority of people, we did our own poll on our channel here, and it was 62% for let them go, resentence them, meaning sentence them to time served and they get out. Resentencing, that's what that means. It's not like you're going to resentence them to more,
Right.
You're going to resentence them to less. And in this case, if you've done 35 years, you're basically going home. So I think the motivation here is wrong, but I think the result might be right.
Right. That's interesting that people could disagree on the motivation, but the result is right. I mean, in all these cases we're seeing, life sentence, and then people can change. I mean, the whole point of prison is that it's not for retribution, although sometimes you really do want it to be for retribution, but that it's try to rehabilitate, and we've kind of forgotten the rehabilitation. But it was, Michael, a brutal crime, and I think the people that watched it at the time, and I know I knew Leslie Abramson, she great attorney at that time. I mean, just you would not want to try a case against Leslie Abramson. It was like, I think one of the prosecutors in the first trial, the Menendez, said it was like trying a case against grazed nails, broken glass, because everything was a fight. And then the second trial, after there was a hung jury, the second trial where the judge kind of gutted their defense about being abused, which we now see may have been real based on this letter that was written at the time by one of the brothers to the cousin. The judge gutted it. So I understand the fact that they should have had a fair trial and let the chips fall where they may. But where they may now is a resentencing, but not for political purposes, right?
Well, that's kind of ironic too. If you think back to when that second trial took place, you could argue that was politically motivated as well, because there was such an outrage. Because things were different then, and guys couldn't possibly be sexually abused, especially by their father. So when they got the hung jury under the first trial, people were mad. And so there was this undercurrent and possibly politically motivated decision not to allow that information in the second trial. Well, you take that stuff out of the mix and you got your conviction.
Yeah. So what do you feel? I know our viewers are weighing in. I can't even keep up by reading it, because I know this is also another hot topic we have about a few more minutes before Michael has to leave. We can do some more
I'm fine.
now.
They'll hold the plane for me. Don't worry. Don't worry.
But I do think you're absolutely right that in terms of victims, they have not been believed for so long. I was a sexual. I handled the sex crimes unit as a child when I was a prosecutor at that time, and it was always people just didn't believe victims. Especially, I have to tell you, women didn't believe women. I mean, I think hopefully a lot has changed, because we now know that. That there's so much abuse, Michael. There's just so much sexual abuse going on. I'm representing a civil case right now where a woman in a high position, all right, and we've had to actually seal some of the documents because we can't release names, because there's so many people that are abused. It's incredible, and it's about time the system take it seriously. And I think that's what people are railing against finally.
Sure, and I also think they look at it and they say, what's the likelihood these guys are going to commit these crimes again? Not only have they proven some worth in prison, running programs, counseling others, but they had a very targeted set of victims. And it's not like they're going to turn into so it's a voice from above. It's not like they're going to turn into Charlie Manson and the Manson family. I think that's a factor
Charlie
you
Manson
can't
was
ignore.
Charlie Manson did brutal crimes. I mean, there was this whole thing out of LA. You had OJ, you had Charlie Manson, you had all of this
Zodiac.
stuff going on. The Zodiac killer.
Yeah,
By the way,
that?
did you ever find the Zodiac killer?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. All right. So, as you know, for our viewers, we have this thing coming up on Wednesdays now. We try to pick at 1:00, although we may change it to later at night because we're finding that a lot of people are liking the nighttime question and answer more. But we put 1, 2, maybe 3, 4. Last week we had 2 of our viewers on chat to come and chat with us on the air for you. It was a big hit. Along with the Where is Justice, which a new one which we'll be announcing soon. But as soon as we know what's happening with YSL, as soon as we know what's happening with the Boone verdict, we will be back. In the meantime, Michael Bryant does have another package that he's going to be airing about the man on the street. Michael, I'm going to give the last thoughts to you.
Yeah, I think, we get so much going on here. I think no surprise in the Menendez matter. It will be decided at some point. And my prediction is it ain't going to be Gascon that has much to do with it at the point it actually happens. That's for sure. YSL, I still believe, and I know people are saying, there's no way, and you said it too, Young Thug is going to take, Jeffrey Williams will not take a plea deal. He just won't. I don't know. If it's a misdemeanor, if it's something that, they can cram down his throat, I'm not so sure that's an absolute, like some people think. I think at a certain point,
a misdemeanor with then you get to get it off your record after about a year. But I think a felony, I don't see any way.
Well, that's why I can't just say no, it's not going to happen. I think if it's the right charge, I think it could happen. A misdemeanor that he could live with. So that's my thought on that. And of course, Sarah Boone, I think it's going to be the manslaughter charge. I think there's going to be a compromise somewhere in that jury room where the people that say that she was abused to the point she should be let off entirely are going to be, kind of massaged into the lesser charge so that they feel she was punished, maybe less than they would have liked on the second-degree murder top charge. That penalty is up to life without parole. I mean, that's massive here in Florida. So I expect a compromise verdict in that case. So.
Yeah, and by the way, just last saw from Cassie C. She said there's a guy on TikTok thinks his grandpa was a Zodiac killer.
Yikes.
I saw that. Kind of interesting.
Is that just clickbait or what? What is that?
No. He really, it's got some interesting reasons to it. But, so that leads us to, we may have more going on here, but we want to get your involvement more. Michael Bryant has to catch a plane. We want to thank you for joining us on short notice because it was important to come talk to you about the YSL case, about obviously the Sarah Boone case where we've been there all week front row, traveled just for you, and also about what was going to happen in the Menendez case. And is it the right thing, Michael?
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Try to do the right thing.